Hello, everyone. I am just waiting on Daphne to join. There we go. Okay. So I think I'm just waiting to go live. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Hey.
Hello. I am just going to fix my screen.
So I want to be sure that you can hear me clearly and there's like no lag or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm able to
Okay.
hear you clearly. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Let us know if you're able to hear us and see us okay. Okay. All right. So while we wait for some people to join, why don't we get started? So, hi everyone. My name is Harkit. I will be interviewing Daphne today. I am a registered social worker and I am based in Toronto. Um, and essentially, that's who I am in a nutshell. So Daphne, the floor is all yours.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. I am so glad to be a part of talking well-being and to have a conversation with someone all the way in Toronto. That is like really cool. So thank you again for
Mm-hmm.
having me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm just really happy to be here. And just quick introduction, my name is Daphne Joseph. I am the founder of Powerhouse Holistic Health Education Organization. And I'm also a therapist. I am a community health worker. And yeah, I have a lot of different hats. But today or right now, I'm wearing more of my founder hat. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Awesome. So, why don't we then get started with today's interview? So essentially, I just kind of want to frame the purpose of this live. So, essentially, what I will be doing today is interviewing Daphne to understand a little bit more about, what the Powerhouse organization, what it consists of, its programming, and then we'll basically take all of that information and discuss specific strategies on actually how to use a holistic approach. When it comes to ensuring mental well-being within our daily lives and also the community, the communities that we live in. So essentially, that is kind of our frame for today as we go through some questions. First off, Daphne, can you tell me a little bit more about yourself? What is it that you would say that you do? And I know that you kind of went through that in your introduction, but maybe you can talk to us a little bit about your nonprofit organization.
Yeah, so well, we're based in Miami, Florida. Well, we primarily
Mm-hmm.
serve Miami-Dade County, Broward County, pretty much the entire South Florida region. And of course, our focus is health, physical health, and mental health wellness as a whole in Black and Brown communities. And how I went about that is pretty much combining all of my educational background. I do have a bachelor's in health promotions, which is community health education, and I also have a master's in psychology.
Mm-hmm.
I am planning on getting my doctorates in health psychology so I can just combine all of that in a nutshell and just pour it into the
Mm-hmm.
community and pour it into Powerhouse. So that's a little gist of my educational background. And as far
Mm-hmm.
as, yeah, I'm born and raised in Miami. I've been in this community for, well, I don't want to give away my age, but majority of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I know the community pretty well. I'm familiar with the needs. And of course, this is where my heart is. This is where I've always been. And I just want to see the progression of my community as much as possible. However, I can give back and see some type of advancement within my community. That's what Powerhouse is all about, and that's what I feel is my purpose. So, yeah, that's just a
Mm-hmm.
little bit about me.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. So thank you for that introduction into, a little bit about yourself, your aspirations, and a little bit about the organization. So with that being said, Daphne, can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to start this organization?
Yes, so it's a little deep and a lot to unpack, but I'll just be completely transparent.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's a few individuals that's watching the live that I've shared this story with before. And hello to the nurse enthusiasts. I do see you there. But yes, I experienced a really bad depression in 2016. So the reason why I knew I was depressed, and this is me sharing like symptoms of depression, I isolated myself. It's like a lot. I didn't go out like things that I would typically be involved with in 2016. I was in college. I was in a sorority. I enjoyed going to class, going to campus events, and going to parties. Of course, it was undergrad, so I did party, but
Mm-hmm.
when that depression hit me, like I wasn't doing anything at all. Like I would stay in my dorm room. I wasn't answering phone calls. If I was invited out anywhere, I wasn't going. I slept all day and was up all night. And when I was up at night, my thoughts was just racing. And I just was always, I guess, feeling like I wasn't happy with where I was in life, where I wasn't happy where I was mentally. I wasn't happy with myself physically. I just felt like, honestly, I was having suicidal ideations at that time. And I felt completely lost. And honestly, truly, the reason why I was feeling lost, essentially, it was because I wasn't living for myself. I was there in college because, of course, that's what my parents wanted me to do. That's what
Mm-hmm.
I felt was right. But was I there for me? Did I know why I was truly there? Did I know my purpose, what I was going to do after college? I had no clue what I was doing. So, of course, with no sense of direction, I just found myself going through a downward spiral. And one of those nights where I was up, and of course, I spent a lot of nights crying myself to sleep because I was very depressed at that time. I, I honestly, truly just, I want to say that I heard God. I heard a voice speak to me and tell me that everything that I was going through was not in vain, and that what I'm going through, I will be able to share with others and help the community, help everyone that I encounter, and inspire others. But of course, at the time, I didn't know what that meant. I just was,
Mm-hmm.
listening to it. I knew I was depressed. I felt this spirit, speak to me, but I wasn't sure what was going on and why it was happening. So that was that. But fast forwarding to now, so I was able to, well, I won't fast forward too much. I was able to pick myself back up. When I heard that voice, the next day I felt a little bit more empowered. So what I did was I started saying, okay, I'm gonna get some more sunlight. I'm not gonna lock myself up in my dorm room anymore. So I started going for walks. And slowly but surely, I started finding myself. I was in Pensacola at the time, and they have an area called the Bluffs. So I would
Mm-hmm.
go there and I would meditate sometimes, which is by an ocean. I would sit there, I would watch the ocean. I would meditate, play some slow music or meditation music. I got into meditation. I got into crystals. I started reading. Then next thing I knew, I went vegetarian. Then I stopped drinking sodas, started drinking all of this water. I went off the haywire. I just was like, okay, I'm vegetarian now. I'm spiritual. I'm happy. Everybody, I am doing okay, and I'm going to help. I'm here to help everybody. It's like I just elevated vibrationally. And honestly, truly looking back at that, I know that everything that I experienced is honestly, truly what led me to where I am now. So when I encounter other people that are either going through depression or going through panic attacks or anxiety, because I was experiencing all of that, suicidal ideations, whatever it is. I know that I was placed here on this earth to help those people move out of those areas of their life. And which is crazy because now I'm looking at myself, I'm like, okay, I'm also a therapist. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
also, I have my nonprofit, I do therapy, I do community health education, and I was able to just put everything just came back full circle. So that was my reason for starting my nonprofit, and which I'm sharing my story today. I share my story with the girls that I meet, the kids that I meet in my community, and people that I meet that are going through the same thing. I share my story with them as well. And I also to share the information that I've learned within my journey to others so they can also advance themselves. So, yeah, that is why I started my organization.
Mm-hmm. And I really thank you for sharing that with us, Daphne. I can understand that that probably did, take a lot to share, and I'm really appreciative that 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 you were able to do so, and that so what I was also looking on my end is that there's so much, I'm seeing so much heart. I don't know if you see that on your screen as well. So I think the folks that are watching this today are also holding a lot of space for you as well. So thank you so much for shedding light on to what motivated you to start this organization, and essentially taking us on your journey. So thank you for that. And so essentially, so Daphne, you were talking about kind of the mental health aspect of it. So you mentioned kind of your experiences with, for example, experiencing panic attacks, experiencing symptoms of depression, suicidal ideation. Um, and so can you tell us a little bit more about the program that your organization offers now that kind of touches upon those, we can call them, that mental health piece?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So we have a couple programs. I kind of divided it by target population or age group. So I have workshops that are for adults, and I also have
Mm-hmm.
workshops that are for adolescents and children, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So for adults, we have the program FEMA. Well, it's abbreviated FEMA, but the each letter stands for Powerhouse, Increasing Mental Health Access. And with that is just working with different therapists. Actually, it's national because, of course, we have the ability to use Zoom and our cell phones.
Yes.
So it's a platform where I connect with different therapists that are willing to provide services at a sliding scale fee for individuals
Mm-hmm.
that are just facing some type of financial troubles and are not able to pay the regular fees for therapy. Because as we know, therapy can be really expensive, like $100,
Yes.
$200 per
Yes.
hour. So these
Mm-hmm.
therapists have agreed to only charge $55 an hour. And with that being said, we also will Powerhouse, if the individual that goes into the program agrees to attend at least 3 sessions. And with 3 sessions, we're actually able to see some type of progress mentally, just some type of mental progress to so they can advance and continue the program. But if they do agree to attend 3 sessions, then we'll pay for the first session. And we were also working on connecting with one of the vice mayors here in Miami, and he was actually going to sponsor all of the sessions for residents in Miami Gardens. That is actually still in the works. I'm still connecting with
Mm-hmm.
the vice mayor here to see if we can sponsor the residents of Miami Gardens. But that is a program that can be utilized. Of course, you can go on our website if you're interested. And it's just myphhealth.org /FEMA. And then we have the list of therapists there, what they specialize in, what their focuses are. Actually, we have one of the therapists that are listed on the website on the live now. She's
Awesome.
the CEO of Collective Sisterhood. So yeah, she's available, and she was actually my therapist at one point. I love her so much. Hi, Miss Joey. I
Mhm.
know you're watching, but yeah, she's there. And then for the adolescent aspect of mental health services, we have the Power Clubhouse, which
Mhm.
is a 6 module series in which we
Mhm.
travel to different schools, juvenile detention centers, after school programs, wherever you can find a large youth population. And we just do either mindfulness activities with them. We do introduction to health education, so they learn about what health education is and what a holistic aspect of health education looks like. We also do art therapy. We do physical activity, nutritional education, or nutrition education. Yeah, it's a bunch of stuff that we do. And of course, there's also the community events where we just had well, I won't say just, that happened last year. Last year, we had a women wellness empowerment brunch that was in October for the month of breast cancer awareness. And we had different speakers to talk about mental health, physical health, and as women, how we can cater to our self care. Um, there's a lot of things that we're doing. Of course, they're all listed on our website
Mhm.
and on the Instagram, but we're doing a lot in the community to focus on mental and physical health.
Mhm. Okay, okay. And thank you for outlining those programs, Daphne. And one thing that actually um is of interest is I wanted to actually talk a little bit more about your art therapy program. So in our initial discussion, Daphne, we were talking about the use of color psychology. And perhaps it might be of benefit for the folks who are watching this live to know a little bit more about the art therapy program and how, for example, color psychology is used. And you know, how do you think that specific program is helpful for individuals and communities, you know, who um, are dealing with mental health from a micro perspective, so we're looking at individuals, but then also that mental perspective as well. How do you think that would is useful for the communities that you serve?
Yeah, so with art therapy program, which is also offered to adults as well as adolescents. And it's funny that
Mm-hmm.
you mention it, and the way I have my phone like positioned right now, that's actually from one of the
Huh.
therapy sessions we did. Um,
Mm-hmm.
well, since it's right there, I guess I can kind of use that as reference. So as you
Yeah.
can see, it's a tree, and just throwing it out there, I do know how to paint. I draw, I sketch, I paint. That's like one of my hidden talents that I often don't use, but I use for the benefit of the nonprofit.
Yeah.
But yes, so with the art therapy or color psychology, essentially what we're doing is teaching individuals how to express their feelings about different areas of their life through colors. And an example of that is, for example, with this tree, I had individuals say, okay, if you would like let your trunk represent your family life or your relationships with your friends, or if you're in a relationship, your relationship with your significant other, if you're not in a relationship, you can have a color to represent that. If you feel like your relationship has a
Mm-hmm.
lot of anger in it, you can
Mm-hmm.
probably express that as red. Or if you feel like you're in a happy relationship with your family or your friend, your boyfriend, girlfriend, you can use yellow or you can use orange, whatever color you want to use. But, I would specify that maybe the tree trunk is family or the grass is friends, the leaves is school or whatever it is. And sometimes it will be labeled out depending on what age group we're working with. So it'll be a little bit more solidified. And they would just use the colors and then just express themselves. And essentially, what all of that comes together and do is once they're done painting their pictures and, of course, really thinking about how they feel about different areas of their life. Once we're all done, we kind of sit down in a circle and we all just talk about why we chose each color. We listen to each other, we give each other feedback, and of course, just we support each other. And that is the whole aspect of art therapy, color psychology. It's
Mm-hmm.
just giving people the opportunity to just use it as an outlet and express how they're feeling about different areas of their life. Have them think about how they feel about different areas of their life. And essentially, if they recognize a feeling that they want to change, then we can talk about how we can make certain steps to changing how you feel about different areas of your life. So it's kind of just putting together therapy, art, and color psychology, and just putting it all together and just putting it out in the community for them to benefit to it from it. And of course, if it's adolescents, then we just play some PG-13 music. And if it's adults, then we would have some wine. The music will be a little bit more broad. Yeah, so that is a gist of what we do for art therapy.
Thank you. That's very useful. And I'm just kind of going through the comments here. So we have, um, I absolutely love the hearts that I see on my screen. So thank you, everyone. That is very lovely to see. But I'm seeing some great comments here. You know, that's beautiful. I love art therapy. So thank you for that. Now, one of the questions that comes to mind, Daphne, is have you seen specific benefits um, by implementing this program, amongst your clients, both from an individual perspective and also from at a community level?
Mhm.
Um,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So I definitely see the benefit. Well, I've been working more with adolescents more than adults
Mm-hmm.
lately, and I
Mm-hmm.
definitely see the benefit working with the adolescents. I mean, they actually share during my sessions with them that, they aren't usually able to open up the way they are
Mm-hmm.
able to, or having them think through different areas of their life and really dig deep and just think about what's going on and how they're feeling about those things. Of course, they are really appreciative about that. For some reason, they feel like, oh, well, you look like you're in high school too, so it's easier to talk to you. And I'm like, well, thank you. I'm not in
Yeah.
high school,
Yeah.
but it makes me feel
Yeah.
good that you think I look like I'm young. Cool. But yes, I definitely see the benefits within adolescence. I am looking to work more with adults. I'm actually putting that together to offer a art therapy event. It's more of like a painting with a twist type vibe with the wine, and of course we implement art therapy as well. So I'm definitely looking to put that within our community very soon. I actually have the outlines ready and everything. I'm just looking for the space to actually hold the event, and then I'm definitely going to do it. But everyone is always giving me their feedback, even with the wellness brunch that I've had recently, the focus groups that I have seldomly. Everyone's
Mm-hmm.
always saying that it's always good for them to just have an opportunity to vent, to have someone listen to them, to get some feedback. And they always leave feeling better, feeling motivated, feeling elevated. And I always get that feedback. And that feedback is what keeps me pushing, even though when I feel like there's a lot on my plate and it's really hard balancing, the different hats that I've mentioned, as well as the nonprofit, but just seeing the changes that I'm making and the impact that I'm making is what keeps me motivated to keep going. So honestly, it helps everyone around. It helps the people that I'm helping and it helps me keep going. So yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
definitely see the benefits.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, and we can kind of see art therapy as part of a holistic approach, right? When we're looking at treatment um, um, within the mental health sector. So would you say that you've or let me rephrase it. Let me rephrase the question. So, can you then perhaps kind of shed light on some of the challenges that you faced in implementing programming, whether that be, art therapy in itself or any of the other programs that you've mentioned? Um, what recent challenges would you say that you faced?
Definitely financial struggles is like a
Mm-hmm.
really, really, really big component of it. Because of course we're a nonprofit. So
Yes.
everything, or whatever money
Hmm.
is made from the events, the fundraiser, if we're getting grants or whatever it is, wherever the money is
Hmm.
coming from, is getting poured back into the community. So if we're not making any money, but we're still pouring into the community, then of course that money is coming out of my own pockets.
Right.
But I am so behind my work, and I believe that it's going to work, that I have no issue doing that. Of course, bills get in the way sometimes, but it is what it is. We're adults. Yes, but the money aspect is definitely a challenge. I have been applying for grants. I'm actually going to look at one of the grants that I applied for recently. Tomorrow, they released the list of who's being invited for the final proposal tomorrow. So that's one aspect. And the thing about applying for grants, now that I'm on that topic, it's kind of like when you're a teenager and you're looking for a job and it's your very first job, but every time you go to an interview, they're like, well, you don't have any experience,
Hmm.
so we need you to have experience before we hire you. But it's like, how am I going to get experience if you don't hire me? So I'm applying for the grants,
Absolutely.
and they're like, okay, so how have you been able to manage your money and what you've been doing with money before? And I'm like, well, no one has given me any money, but I've been spending my own money. I can tell you what I've been doing with my own money. So it's really hard in that aspect, just getting the financial support to implement the programs within the community for whether it's adults or adolescents. And of course, the next challenge would be the help, whether it's coordinating events or having a meeting with, like, either it's the school board or a CEO of an after school program. Of course, coordinating those meetings,
Hmm.
the phone calls, the emails, needs assessments to see which community needs, what program, how to best approach this community or this target audience. It's a lot of work putting together events, and it's a lot of work putting together whether it's a partnership or whatever it is. And of course, I've been doing a lot of it on my own. So I've kind of slowed down because it's become a lot to handle by yourself. But I'm just really looking forward to the money rolling in, being able to hire people, getting the help to just really get the ball rolling. I do believe that I'm doing this for a reason. God placed me in this position to do this work. So essentially, the support and the help and the money is going to come. Of course, it's just a matter of when. So I
Hmm.
have faith,
Hmm.
but those are the challenges that I'm experiencing. And I know my answers are like really long-winded to a very
No,
short question.
no, 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 no. I really appreciate the depth and for you to, being able to talk about these things in detail. So it's really, really helpful because, you know, um, being in social work in in Canada also poses some very similar challenges. So I can understand and I can hear the frustrations when it comes to, putting forward mental health supports. But funding is always an issue. There's so much
Mhm.
depth and things that could be talked about that. So I totally get it. Um, and so, on that note, Daphne, um, so one of the highlights of our live today was to allow our viewers and allow those who would be watching this live later on actually be able to implement, hands-on strategies when it comes to using a holistic approach, to help them cope with their mental health. Is there any, specific strategies or tools that you think come to mind that, that you can discuss for today's live?
Yeah, so one of the strategies or tools that I always suggest well, this is mainly for adults, is to always
Mm-hmm.
cater to your child's self. So essentially, what that means, whatever you did in your childhood that really brought you happiness, don't neglect that now that you're an adult, because that
Mm-hmm.
child, the 7-year-old, the 8-year-old that really enjoyed doing that back in the days, that person still exists inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
So I know sometimes people would say, okay, well, video games do that for me, but simply just going outside and exercising with a jump rope. Jump rope being is nostalgic. You know, a lot of us jump rope as a child, so that could be something that caters to your child self. For me, it's going to the beach. You can, what else? Playing basketball. Sometimes I know some people do that.
Mhm.
So whatever it is that you enjoy doing as a child that you know brings you happiness and brings you peace, you can definitely do that. I would definitely also suggest, honestly, anything that elevates serotonin levels within the body. So, getting some sunlight, vitamin D, that is a holistic approach of boosting serotonin levels in the body. Meditation, of course, and I actually guide meditations often. So, if anyone needs assistance with that, they can definitely send me a DM. I can help you learn how to meditate a little bit more
Mhm.
effectively, especially if you're an individual that feel like when I meditate, all of my thoughts are just coming to surface and I just can't seem to relax at all. Like it makes me experience some symptoms of anxiety. I help with that as well. And other than exercises, meditation, actually exercising, that boosts serotonin. But in addition to that, there are foods that boost serotonin. Salmon does that, eggs, spinach, peanuts. Those are good food items that boost the serotonin, and which is common because we all know that food tends to make us happy, but that is a really slippery slope because sometimes we use food to cope, which can
Yeah.
often lead to overeating or leading to obesity or whatever it is. Oh, I thought somebody was looking through the window. I almost was like, oh no. Okay, but yeah, yes, that is a really slippery slope. So definitely be careful with that. If you can lean more towards the exercises or the herbs, I would definitely say that. And with herbs that I would suggest, ashwagandha, I know it's a mouthful. Ashwagandha definitely it helps with calming, it helps boost serotonin. Chamomile does,
Mhm.
ginseng does, lavender, um, what else? It's slipping my mind right now. It the word that's coming to mind just says root. Uh, but when I remember, I will say. But there's a couple herbs that you can use to help boost serotonin holistically, just to help elevate or level your mood or just cope with stress. And of course, you can always use those exercises later on down the road. If you're feeling stressed or if you're feeling sad, you can also do one of those things because you know that is not dandelion root. You're close. Oh, now you're making me think about it again. uh, yeah, but yeah, some herbs, exercises, and some foods do help boost serotonin. And of course, there's always people that you can talk to. I'm also always available if anyone needs to talk to someone that needs, if they need just someone to help guide them or give them some more exercises or suggestions for coping. I'm always available. Yeah, but those are a few tips that I have for anyone that's looking
Mhm.
for some coping exercises or something holistic to help them with mood regulation.
And no, and that is very, very useful information. I'm just gonna go to the chat here. So I think there is a question here about any book recommendations. Is there anything that you recommend, Daphne, where folks can learn more about these different holistic methods or any resources, essentially?
Yeah, I have my bookshelf right there. It's a little, you know what? I'm gonna grab some books. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I really chose the perfect area to do this interview with you because it's like I have the painting here, I have the books there, everything is just right here. Okay, so if anyone reads books, of course, this is always my first suggestion is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And what this book does is just It's a self-help book, which talks about learning how to cope with different situations, change your perspective of life. So when you're faced with adversities or when you're faced with any type of conflict, you kind of change your perspective to where you're not looking at things from a victim mentality, but more of how things can either help you or how this doesn't really apply to you, if that makes sense. This book really helped me because essentially I was really battling with I guess that victim mentality. As far as when things are happening to me, I would always say to myself, why is this happening to me? I don't deserve this. Or just feeling like, and essentially that is usually the root of depression. It's always a feeling of something that's happening to you that shouldn't be happening. You're kind of not really going with the waves, you're kind of going against it. And this book kind of helps you in the aspect of learning how to go with the flow and just understanding life for how it is and not really just taking things personally, which is one of the agreements. Not to take things personally, be impeccable with your word, uh, do your best, and don't take don't take things personally. Be impeccable with your word. Do your best, and don't make assumptions. Which essentially helps you with communication. So this book is definitely one of the greatest books when it comes to self help and changing your perspective about life. What other book? If you're into chakras, this is a really good book. It teaches you about how to balance different chakras, what those chakras are used for, how to know when you have a blockage, whether it's with your throat chakra, heart chakra, sacral root, whatever it is. Yeah, this is a really good book. Actually, was like one of my first books, and I didn't even pay for it. One of my friends gave it to me. She said you can borrow it, and I never gave it back. But it's a good book. Okay. Do I really want to say this one? Or do I want to use this one? I would suggest this one as well, Speaking with Nature. And
Mm-hmm.
that's for someone that enjoys nature or want to use more of like grounding exercises to help cope with
Okay.
stress and so forth. So what this encourages is really just going outside and letting your feet touch the ground, spreading your toes along the grass and just being in the moment and just standing outside, looking at the clouds, looking at the trees and using that to elevate your mood. This book talks all about that. Yeah, it's really good when it comes to grounding exercises and also just elevating your consciousness when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
your intuition. Yeah, it's a really good book, but I would suggest reading it. It gets more into the spirituality side than just nature, but yeah, this is also a good book. Yeah, so those are my three suggestions. Of course, I have
Okay.
a lot
Perfect.
more,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, those are my three suggestions.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us, Daphne. And I'm just
Of
gonna go
course.
into the comment section just to make sure I didn't miss anything. And while I'm doing that, does anyone have any questions that they wanted to ask Daphne? Before I ask a question, just gonna double check I'm not missing anything.
And this is another good book by Don Miguel Ruiz, just in case. This is more about
Mm-hmm.
love and yeah, it's more about love, but it's a real more in-depth version of just love, the word love of
Mm-hmm.
how we think about it. That's a really good book too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, one
Mm-hmm.
more suggestion.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Go for it. Okay. Um, all right. Um, so, so thank you, Daphne, for sharing those resources and being so hands-on. I think that is definitely that's great. And so, can you perhaps talk to us about the practices that you use? Um, in your daily life to kind of implement a holistic lifestyle. And what would you say, Daphne, are the benefits and the challenges that you experience in implementing those practices?
Yeah, so that's a really good question because, of course, as a person that promotes holistic lifestyles and wear all these different hats, you tend to get really busy. As you can
Mm-hmm.
tell, it's 8 o'clock and technically I'm working. But how I balance work-life balance, that's like the number one thing is just having a work-life balance. And how I do that is by specifically, if I can't have a day to myself, I would have an evening to myself. And I always suggest that to any and everyone, whether you have a busy lifestyle or not, just make sure that you have a little bit of time to cater to yourself. And just like I was saying before, catering to your child self or whatever activities that you use for coping with stress, whether it's going for walks or just taking a long bath or just going to the beach or laying or standing outside doing some grounding exercises in the grass, or if you do yoga, whatever it is, just make sure you have either a day or an evening for yourself. And that's something that I do. I actually do that on Saturday mornings. I would either go ride my bike. There's an overpath in the area. I would just go do some exercises up and down the overpath. And once I get home, I would do my stretches. So I will stretch out after my exercises, which is more so on the yoga side, more than just stretching. And I will also do, once I calm down from my exercises through the yoga, I would do some breathing exercises. And I would do that right in my patio. So the sunlight is hitting me. I'm relaxing my mind, letting go to eat the day that I've had before or the week that I've had before. And that is a really good exercise that I do because honestly, truly, it helps me slow down and just be in the moment, especially when
Mm-hmm.
I'm just constantly going, and I have all of these meetings and client sessions. But in
Mm-hmm.
that moment, I completely tune myself out to everything and I just enjoy the sunlight, the heat that I'm feeling from the sun, or if I feel a breeze, or if I see like it gets so in depth in the moment. Like I would be sitting there breathing and I would look at the grass and just be like, oh, the grass is so beautiful. I've never
Yeah.
looked at
Yeah.
grass like this since I was a kid. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's one example. Um, and along with that, just being able to say no. It's really hard to take time to yourself when you're constantly giving
Yeah.
it to other people. So it is okay to say no when your friends are either asking you to go out and hang out, have fun, or if someone's asking you for a favor and you know that you solidified that time for yourself, just say no. Like that time is for you. You are important. So that is something that I am getting used to. Well, I can't say I'm getting used to because everyone that knows me knows that I say no. um, but
Awesome.
yes, that
Okay.
is a little bit of what I do. And of course, to help
Okay.
me with my own anxiety, I just learn to be
Mm-hmm.
more in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing that with us. I'm gonna get to one of the questions that's posed in the in the chat. But before I do, what comes to mind is when you kind of went through the different grounding exercises that you go through. Um, what comes to mind here is that here in Canada, we're currently in spring. Sometimes it snows, sometimes it rains, sometimes it gets to -17. Um, so, I acknowledging, more so kind of a side note here, but even to be outside here in Canada sometimes can get difficult. But
Mhm.
I'm really glad that, you have the weather on your side to be able to definitely kind of practice those wonderful strategies. Um, okay, so I'm just going to go to two questions here. So we have a question. So Daphne, what are some activities and events that you plan on bringing to the community in the future?
Well, one of the community events that I'm actually planning on, well, two of them, they kind of go hand in hand. Of course, it's the art therapy that I was just
Yeah,
mentioning, but for
yeah.
adults. That is something that I'm actually, the only thing that's keeping me from doing that like right now is just finding the space to do it. But as soon as I find the
Mm-hmm.
space, it's happening. Like that is the very next event. In
Mm-hmm.
addition to that, I am also planning to put together focus groups for women as well,
Mm-hmm.
women, mothers, or just yeah, women in general, just supporting each other, creating a safe space for a safe space. I don't know why I keep getting tongue tied right now. I guess it's getting late. Yeah, but
I
just
hear you.
creating a safe space for women to just vent and have or find support for each other, uh, talk to each other. If there's another woman in the space that has experienced the same thing, then of course they can always provide advice to each other. Um, what else I'm planning on doing? I am debating whether or not I want to do a either a marathon or like a bike riding event. I'm still seeing which avenue I can take that has less of the legal, um, whether it's dealing with the legal formalities of whether someone get hurts themselves or fall off a bike on the partnerships or contracts with different biking companies, like what would be a safer route. I'm still working the kinks out on that one, but the art therapy for adults, which of course is going to include wine, is going to include the space, the wine, the music is going to have all of that vibe stuff going on. And then the focus groups, they will actually be virtual. Sometimes it will be virtual, sometimes it won't. So, of course, women from all over are invited to attend. Yeah, so that's what I have in store as of right now. And I'm also
Mm-hmm.
looking to do the women wellness empowerment brunch again because it was such a success last year. So I definitely want to do that again as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thank you. Um, I'm just gonna go through the questions here. So we have a question here. And I know that we did touch upon this, Daphne, but I think kind of before our conversation, whereas was kind of, geared maybe a little bit more about, um, you know, how to kind of deal with the anxiety, the specific tools and strategies. So we have a question here about depression. So what are some ways that we can help someone, in the community that we know might be kind of going through a depressive episode, let's just say. Do you have any, specific tools or strategies that you can share with us?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the first thing I would suggest with anyone, if you think someone might be depressed, definitely just getting a little bit more background on what depression look like. And it's easy as just Google, and it's some of the symptoms that I mentioned before when I was experiencing depression, is such as self-isolation,
Mm-hmm.
irritability, uh, other than self-isolation, irritability, constant fatigue or lack of sleep, nightmares, all of those things are symptoms of depression. But if
Mm-hmm.
someone does reach out to you and they mention that they may be depressed, definitely use that opportunity to just be a listening ear. Let them get it
Mm-hmm.
off their chest. Avoid making the conversation about you. I know a lot of times when people are having a conversation with someone and they may say something that triggers a memory and you would like to share, but at that moment, that person is reaching out to you for help. So definitely let them get it off out their chest and just listen to them. Another thing is to encourage healthy habits. So if you know that person is self isolating or just indulging in social media, indulging in Netflix, and not really getting out the house, you can just invite them somewhere. And sometimes when it comes to inviting someone that is depressed somewhere, it's best to invite them somewhere that is a little bit more intimate than a big social event. It can kind of deter them from joining. So maybe just like a walk in the park or to the beach, somewhere that can help them relax. That is a really good suggestion or something that you can do. In addition to that, encouraging them to do self-care. So if there's something that you do for yourself that encourages self-care, like for example, I do meditation or I go bike riding, exercising, I would invite that person to go to the park with me or go to the gym with me. And they don't really have to go all out as far as exercise, but it does boost serotonin. So that is something that you can do just to help them boost their own serotonin. And of course, the other suggestions that I gave as far as boosting serotonin. So the teas, the herbs, the foods, everyone likes food being made for them or given to them. So you can always use those foods that boost serotonin as well. And yeah, the exercises, anything just to get them out of that world, that dark area that they're in, just pull them out really quickly, just show them the light, even if it's for a moment, and giving them the opportunity to vent. And of course, if you're aware of the resources that are available, of course, my program, the FEMA program that suggests therapists at lower rates, if not free, um, sending them the information of a therapist. I also provide therapy services. And there's a bunch of therapists listed on my website. You can reach out to them directly. Yes. And another thing, if anyone does mention suicide, definitely take that seriously. I know a lot of times people would feel like it's just ideations and they're not going to go through with it, but you don't want to take that risk. So if someone does mention that to you, take it seriously, have a conversation with them about what's making them feel that way and how they can cope with those triggers so they can not lead or turn towards suicide, but more towards how to positively cope with those adversities that they're facing. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, those are my
Okay.
suggestions.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's definitely helpful. And thank you so much, Daphne, for providing us some really concrete, strategies and specific, essentially ways to definitely deal with that. Because I know sometimes, often uh, family members, loved ones, those that are concerned, they often kind of struggle in regards to what do they do. So I think that kind of gives us some insight there. I just want to keep an eye on the time. So we have been, I think, at this live for roughly a little bit over 15 minutes. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it's time to wrap up. I have one last question for you, Daphne. Um, and while I just review my questions here, does anyone else have any questions that you really would like to ask for today? Please feel free to type that in in the chat box below. But the question that I have for you, Daphne, is to kind of sum everything up. What you provided us today was definitely a great overview about your organization. You went through the specific tools and strategies about actually cultivating a holistic approach, um, from a micro perspective. So we're looking at it from an individual perspective, and also at a meso perspective. So we were also able to touch about the community level. And in doing so, what we kind of learned is, we were able to explore the challenges that you are currently facing in implementing programming. We were able to learn more about what the different types of programs that you offer. We were able to kind of dig deep into, for example, art therapy, as one of the key programs that you are involved in, and also even a little bit about yourself, Daphne. You were really able to provide us some great tips on how you implement a holistic lifestyle, and even some of the resources that you used. So with all that being said, and to kind of summarize how this live has been going so far, um, my final question for you, Daphne, is if you were to go back in time to tell your younger self something, what would that be?
Um, well, first and foremost, I love that question so much. I actually used it during a meeting as an icebreaker, and everyone else loved it too. And they were just like, "Wow, that's a really good question."
Yeah.
But the advice that I would give my younger self And it's going back to this book that I suggested, the Four Agreements. It's actually one of the agreements that's on here, which is to be impeccable with your word. And my reason for using that as the advice I would give to my younger self, I have a really hard time being able to speak my truth. And the reason being is because I was raised in a Haitian household, a very island, strict, authoritative type household where the adult or your elders were always like first. You can't speak over
Mm-hmm.
them. If they're
Yep.
speaking, do not say a word. If you see them, you go up to them and you say hello, and that's
Mm-hmm.
it. You do not
Yep.
talk back.
Yep.
You do not express yourself or try to vocalize why you think they're wrong or none of that stuff. You cannot do any of it. And growing up with that type of structure, it was more, I would say, it wasn't constructive really for me because it
Mm-hmm.
made me grow up very shy. I tend to steer away from public speaking for that reason because I feel like, especially if there's someone in the room or in the vicinity that I looked at as an authority, I was just afraid to express myself around them for that exact reason. So I
Mm-hmm.
would tell my child self that your word, mean what you say and say what you mean. Your word is magic and you can use your voice to be powerful. And don't let
Mm-hmm.
anyone take that power away from you. If I could just give myself that advice back then, I feel like when it comes to even situations like this, where I'm having a conversation with you, but it's in front of an audience, it would be
Yep.
much easier for me to articulate myself as far as the programs we have or my own experience. And because essentially, when you have a struggle speaking your truth, you're just going through all of these different thoughts of what could go wrong or what someone may think or how they may perceive your message and whether or not they would understand your message the way you want it to get through to them. And it's so many different things. So I would tell myself to just be more impeccable with my word. And I would also tell myself to live for myself and no one else.
Mm-hmm.
What I feel is right for me, go with that and not whether it's adults or whoever think they know best. You know what's best for you. So live for yourself and no one else. Yeah, that's the advice I would give myself.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I think that's wonderful. And I think many of us who are watching this live can relate, coming from Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities. I think, and also even immigrant communities as well. I think many of us have those pieces um, really kind of close to our heart. And I think you really opened up this space here, Daphne, to really think critically about it. Um, and essentially for us to kind of get closer to to coming to terms that yes, that has definitely impacted us and who we are today. So you've given us a lot to think about. So with that being said, does anyone else have any last minute questions that they would like to pose? If I missed anything.
It seems like we got everything, but
Yeah.
yeah, I actually like how you mentioned that, just giving everyone a lot to think about as far as
Mm-hmm.
how our childhood experiences mold us as adults. That's essentially what
Mm-hmm.
that question is getting others to think about. That's why I love that question so much. It's like, it's a really good question. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
definitely stealing it for my client sessions. Yes, I love that
Absolutely,
question.
absolutely. Um, so those are all my questions I have for you today. We were able to do this live for an hour, which is amazing. But I think it's time to wrap up now. So it's going to be the last call for any questions or comments or feedback. Um, Daphne, do you have any last words or any thoughts that you would like to share with us before we end this discussion?
Um, Not really, only that I would like anyone that's watching this live that just, if they want to either, like I said before, learn more about how to meditate, do yoga, if they want to find a therapist, if they want to speak to a therapist, if they just want to find someone just to text and just vent, or whatever it is, if you feel like you don't have anyone to speak to, I am always available. My DMs are open, whether it's through my PH Health page or my personal page or wherever it is. I'm always here and I'm always a listening ear. So definitely feel free to slide in the DMs, ask your questions, or just say whatever you need to get off your chest. I feel that is why I've been placed on this earth. So utilize what God has placed on this earth for your benefit. Yes, that's all I would wrap up by saying.
Perfect. Thank you. And I think it might be useful, Daphne, if you, I think you're able to maybe type
Yeah,
your Instagram handles or any essentially ways that we can find you.
yes, I am dropping that in the chat right now. Instagram is so helpful. It's just like, do you mean this person? Yes, I mean that person. Thank you. But yes, these are my pages.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's it for tonight. Um, well, thank you everyone for watching, for joining. Your lovely hearts throughout the Instagram live were really, really helpful. All of your lovely comments and interactions were super great. Um, but I think that's it for us for tonight.
And thank you again for having
Okay.
me.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you for your lovely answers and going into so much detail and depth. That was really, really appreciated.
Of course, always.
Okay. All right. Well, we will close this live. But thank you everyone for joining. And until next time.
Bye.
Okay. Good night. Bye bye.